Blonde. Kelly, thank you. I'm joined now by Matt Schlapp, chairman of the American Conservative Union. Full disclosure, by the way, Matt's wife, Mercy, is a senior communications advisor to the president. Matt, we wanted to have you on because your group obviously works a lot with this White House on policy, and you work with the personnel. So I'll start with this. Should Rob Porter...
And I know the people involved.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. When these allegations came to light, apparently long ago at the White House, should Rob Porter have been immediately dismissed?
I think there's two questions here. When you go to work for the president, as I have done, they do a full FBI background check on you. They're what's called raw reports. Remember back in the Clinton years when all those FBI files were they found at the White House? The reason why there was an uproar over it is because people say all kinds of things about you. They say things that could be true, not true, unverified. The FBI doesn't chase those down. They just simply present it all. So if you have somebody who works for...
Present it all to whom?
Well, if you have somebody who works at the White House, they might call you and say, hey, do you know this person? What do you know about them? So once those issues, serious issues, as these are clearly sobering, serious, issues that should be taken incredibly seriously by the FBI and by the White House team, and I think that second statement from the general demonstrates that. You then have to chase those allegations down. It's unfair in America that simply when there's an allegation to assume that it's right. By the same token, it's wrong on the part of the people doing the background check to let something linger when there are serious allegations. You got to get on top of these things quickly so that you can resolve it.
But everybody at this point acknowledges that these appear to be credible allegations from these two women. Allegations, of course, that Porter has denied. But Axios points out this morning, wait a sec, that any any corporation in America would have said, see ya, here's the door. We don't need this. We don't need this mess. Why didn't that happen here?
Well, like I said, whenever you do this FBI report, any person who goes through it is going to could have terrible charges raised. Just because a charge is raised doesn't mean it's true, so you have to track it down. I think what happened in this case is that because the FBI background check was taking so long for him to get his full clearance, I think the women involved eventually got impatient and figured, look, I've talked to the FBI, I've explained what these background issues were, what's going to happen here? And then that happened with the press, the first story, and I think that's unfortunately when it came to head with a lot of people at the top at the White House.
But should John Kelly... He's somebody you know that you interact with when it comes to sort of interactions with the conservative community. Should he handle this differently? What does this say about him?
I think clearly in this case, I'll answer that question by starting with, I think Rob Porter knew whether these things are truthful or inaccurate. Rob Porter knew they were going to be raised. And so you have to ask yourself, is it worthwhile serving a president knowing all of this eventually is going to be talked about on television and in the newspaper? That's the part of being in politics that is both fair and unfair. That's the first question on Rob. The second question is that on these FBI background checks, when issues of domestic violence are raised, it is important to get immediately on top of those to figure out, with your best judgment, right? Is there enough truth here where we should take an action?
So did John Kelly use his best judgment, Matt?
I think that the mistake that was made here is that he didn't realize the severity of the charges until it hit the press. And I think that happens a lot in these background checks because I've not read one because it would have been inappropriate for me to read them, but it's all there. And people who don't like you can make charges, and people who don't like your politics can make charges. So it would also be unfair to assume that just because it's in the FBI background check, it's true. They didn't have the voices of these women speaking in these interviews, which I think makes these charges very serious.
But they had these women speaking to the FBI.
You're right. Then that's the mistake. As soon as that happened, and issues of domestic violence, they needed to move quicker to make sure whether or not they thought that there was some truth to these charges.
Should John Kelly have taken this to the president because the White House claims the president did not know about any of this until it hit the news? Did Kelly do a disservice to Donald Trump?
No, I don't know of any circumstance, certainly in the years in which I was at the White House, that it was any kind of regular practice to bring these types of background issues to the president, that they're always handled at a lower level.
The security clearance issue has become, it appears, a serious problem. Rob Porter was working for over a year on what we have learned was a temporary clearance. There are others now reportedly who have also been working under temporary clearances.
Which is very common at the White House until
not this long though.
Until you get, I think
over a year.
I think that's a fair criticism for somebody who's the staff secretary. I think they should have resolved these issues earlier. That's a fair criticism. But at the White House, when you have a whole new staff coming in, it's a lot to ask of the FBI to get all of these clearances done in a short period of time.
Sure, but a year and change, right?
As I've said, I think in this situation, the mistake that was made is allowing these issues to linger too long.
So number one, should John Kelly go?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think the statement that that was sent to the staff and obviously reporters got reflects where his heart is. I think everyone knows he is a decent man who has served this country with distinction, who is someone who takes issues like this seriously. And I think his second statement really captured what should be said.
He's also stepped in it a little this past couple of weeks. He called immigrants too lazy to get off their asses to sign up for DACA. His words, not mine. He had other issues that have come up over the last several weeks of how he's handled certain things. At what point does that build?
Look, he's not a politician. And I think you see that with some of these interviews is that he's candid, he gives a response, and you guys criticism. And that's the process we have, and that's fair. I know him to be a man of character with a good heart who is trying to competently lead these negotiations on the question of DACA and immigration. And I think the people on both sides are happy to have him there.
So let me ask you about the president, because conservatives have backed Donald Trump at just about every step. But when you look at the controversies, some of the scandals that have continued to engulf this West Wing, you have Michael Flynn.
The scandal of cutting taxes, the scandal of cutting regulations, the scandal of moving the capital in Israel to Jerusalem. I mean, what are the
Paul Manafort and Rick Gates, for example, being indicted. You have Mike Flynn, his national security advisor, lying to the FBI. This Rob Porter stuff. We have a list of scandals that have happened over the last year of the president's administration.
Did you not cover the Clinton administration?
So, but I
Were
guess
you
my
around
question
here
is,
during that?
But when conservatives talk about their values, some of this is about character,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Is there a limit? At what point do you say enough?
Are you trying? You brought it up at the beginning of the show that my wife for the president. Are you saying that she lacks character?
I'm not.
Right. So
but I'm asking the question.
What you're trying to do
at
is,
what point does it become
what you're
too
doing?
much?
This is I'm not accusing you of this, but the whole concept of just because there are some people who have done something wrong, that everybody, including the leader, is guilty of all those things is a huge mistake. The fact is this: those people like Rick Gates, Manafort, were accused of wrongdoing for things they did before they were even associated with Donald Trump. The whole question with General Flynn is about whether or not they captured a conversation, which is a political controversy that a lot of people on the left agree with. Your government spying on you. The question of ethics inside the White House, as soon as folks realized that there were these serious allegations that the voice was given also to these women in the press, give the press some credit for doing their job as well, he left the White House immediately. And so I think he
wasn't going to originally, though, Matt. He was going to stay on for a smooth transition, according to the White House.
That doesn't matter.
Listen, let me ask you
what ended up happening? He's not on the White House staff, and that is the appropriate decision. He needs to go. If he's innocent, he needs to go defend his honor. If he's guilty, he's going to be in the court of law, and that's going to be adjudicated.
But employment at the White House is not predicated upon what a court of law decides.
That's right. That's why he's gone. No court has said anything, and he's gone because it's the right thing for him to be gone.
So let me ask you this, and you brought up Mercy working in the White House.
No, you all brought up Mercy working in the White House.
Well, we just have to disclose that she's your wife, and then you asked me about her, so I'll ask you about her now. Is she comfortable working in this West Wing, given some of the...
Completely. And I talked to her late last night because her hours are long, and we talk about a lot of things, and she takes great pride in the fact that she's working for this White House. I want to make this very clear. I know when I come on your show that the audience is different from the audience in front of CPAC, for instance, which is going to happen in 2 weeks. I know that the country is left and it's right, and we have a lot of divisions. But it's really important for your viewers to also understand there's a huge part of this country that feels so empowered and is so proud of the fact that they have a president who is voicing their concerns. And for 8 years, they didn't feel like their voice was... No, let me just say this.
No, I know. You're making the policy argument.
No. I'll make it on the other side, too. They believe that their voice is being heard. When they elected Donald Trump, they weren't electing someone they thought was a perfect person. They thought they were electing a fighter who would actually stand up for the things they care about. And that's why people like my wife are so proud to be a part of this. Look, there are times when it's chaotic. There's a lot of turbulence. There's a lot of times when I scratch my head and say, why didn't they do this way? Why didn't they do that way? You're a journalist. You should scrutinize them as much as possible. But don't doubt that a lot of Americans are looking at Donald Trump himself as a person